The Pulse of Spokane is a broad show that showcases many different things in our community, sponsored by Local 29 Firefighters Union, Well Dressed Walrus, and Homes for You.
Welcome into another in-home edition of the Pulse of Spokane. Today, I'm joined with Dennis Mossburg of Grade Moose Leadership Group. Dennis, how is it that you are doing today in this world that we currently find ourselves in?
Well, it's kind of a different world. We're certainly noticing a lot of disruption. A lot of our daily lives has been impacted, and that includes a lot of businesses. And there are a lot of businesses kind of struggling to survive right now. And it's just kind of interesting to watch this cycle and hope we start winding down pretty soon.
Yeah, it is. Inevitably, there are those that are having a harder time with it than others in terms of businesses. But it's been, through my calls and experiences, it's been a little reassuring to know that there actually have been a lot that have been able to transition and kind of maintain their operations. So it's good that there is still that out there. But of course, yeah, we can't forget about those who are being hit a lot harder by this. Um, so you were just mentioning that you kind of wear a lot of hats and that you're involved in a lot of different circles. I was wondering if you could just tell me and the viewers about what it is that you do in all these various forms.
So, one of the hats I've been wearing a lot lately is I'm part of an incident management team. And these are the folks you call when you have an emergency, typically like hurricanes or fire seasons or things like that. And we aren't really the boots on the ground. We kind of organize and manage the response to the incident. So in the past, I've gone to Hawaii for the Kilauea volcano. I've been to North Carolina for Hurricane Florence, and then done several other responses, including some for COVID-19 for other local agencies.
Yeah. So what do the interactions and the work that you do for these COVID uh, experiences that you've been? What does that look like? What are you doing?
Well, so a lot of what we're doing is, or what I've done certainly around COVID, is trying to plan out what social distancing looks like. How do you create that? And then how do you work around it? Some government agencies have a hard time dealing with that because, you're in office buildings. Office buildings aren't really designed for social distancing. You want to put a bunch of people in an area, and most of them are considered essential workplaces. So how do keep all your essential employees there, but work on your social distancing and still try to create safe workplaces for people? And then other things that we have to deal with is we get a lot of information. Of course, everybody's getting a lot of information from Department of Health and trying to make sense of how to apply those um, guidelines into workplaces. And so you're calling back and forth and trying to get clarification information um, on how to do some of that.
How did you get into what you find yourself doing now in responding to these big kind of disaster crises type situations? Like COVID and with the volcanic eruption and earthquakes and such. How did you get into that?
Well, most people get involved in this through government agencies, and I do work for a government agency, but I don't want to, seem like I'm speaking for them. But my my first job is as an emergency responder, so I learned how to provide emergency response through that, and then you just start going through the training and you volunteer to do things, and the more you volunteer, the more they let you do. So that's kind of how I ended up with that part of the job.
Is there something about the situation of an emergency that is appealing to you, or just the fallout and the aftermath and dealing with the people that have suffered from it, or something in between, or neither?
It's It's tough to say. I've often wondered why I'm drawn to these kinds of situations. In North Carolina, um, we landed. They put us up in a Kmart, an abandoned Kmart, with 200 to 300 other first responders from across the nation. And the first night they said, "Well, we're not sure what we're going to have you guys do." So we get up in the morning, they have a briefing, and they say, "Well, no one's heading east towards the coast, just nobody's heading east." Well, about an hour later, I found myself in a car with a bunch of my coworkers heading east into the hurricane. Um, I'm not really sure what it is about it that drives me to do things like this. Certainly, there's a sense of duty. I want to be able to help people. And there's probably a little bit of that adventure. Most people are running away from the hurricane, and here we are driving towards it. Um,
Yeah.
but I think a big part of it is just that sense of wanting to help the community, wanting to serve someone larger than yourself. And there's definitely a great deal of satisfaction knowing that you've returned some sort of normalcy to a chaotic situation like that.
Oh yeah, no, it's incredible, and thank God that we have people like you that are willing to, yeah, run toward the sounds of, yeah, chaos and tyranny and all of that. So does the work kind of stay dormant if there aren't these sort of disasters and crises going on, or are you, even when things are pretty normal, are you still pretty busy?
Well, most of us who do this have some sort of 9 to 5 job on top of it.
Okay.
So we've got a regular job that we go to, and then the crisis kicks up, and we go to that. But there's always training that you have to do. We have quarterly and monthly trainings, and then FEMA is always sending out new trainings that we have to go to. So we have a regular job, but then we keep up with this kind of on the side.
Okay, I see. So, I mean, in the future, I mean, I get we all kind of understand that we're going to be dealing with the pandemic for the foreseeable future, and of course, nobody knows if it's realistically a month, 2 months, 3 months, or well into the fall. Nobody really knows. There's a lot of conflicting information and opinions about it. But in terms of you being currently involved with dealing with that, what do you think it would look like if there were, a massive earthquake to strike, or a hurricane, or tornado, or something like that? How they prioritize um, the level of response to each of the respective disasters, basically.
So prioritizing response to disasters, it's really up to the governors of those states. They're the ones who make the call, the determination of whether to declare an emergency. That's why when you see hurricanes lining up out in the Atlantic, the governors of those various states start declaring medical emergencies. That way they can get FEMA to come in for help. But you let off with earthquakes. That makes me think of something that the state of Washington, Oregon, and um, BC are working on right now. There's this Cascadia subduction zone. It's a plate out in the Pacific Ocean that's rubbing up against the continental plate. And historically, every 300 to 400 years, there's been a massive earthquake.
Oh,
Well, we're well past that timeline. Now, keeping in mind this is geologic time, and who knows when this could happen. It could happen, today, or it could happen, another 100 years from now. But the threat is present enough that Oregon and Washington are going to hold a exercise in 2022 about how our response would be to that. And so that's obviously, when we're not dealing with COVID and some of these other things, kind of the top priority in the region right now is how do we respond to something that's going to affect Northern California, 2 states, and a province. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now in this side of the state, or in this part of the country.
well, that's perfect, because that was kind of going to be my next question. Is I mean, with a lot of things, you can't pinpoint when they're going to happen, but you can. There are some things in some sciences that can project when you can expect generally something to happen, such as a hurricane or a tornado, more weather related. But yeah, I assume there are preemptive and proactive measures that you guys are taking or that
There
have to
are
take.
absolutely not. Yes, the states are coming up with plans, and that's part of what these exercises are for. So the last time they had the event, the Cascadia Rising event, was 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember the exact year. But from that, the states and governments learn some lessons and develop plans. And so now this next event, we're going to test those plans and see how well they work or how well we think they work. It's all part of the contingency planning cycle that we go through.
Yeah, well, let's hope they do work. Hopefully, you guys don't have to retool too much on that. Just one last question for you before I let you go. With your response and your work with people, or just the whole COVID ordeal, are you staying pretty local within Washington, or are you doing a lot of travel like you would for an earthquake or a natural disaster that happened around somewhere else in the world?
Well, because this is affecting every state and pretty much every location, local resources are pretty much being tapped, and we can't really call out to anybody else. In a hurricane season, the East can always call the West and say, send us some help. But unfortunately, we're all just kind of staying local and helping. The most I would do is probably travel over to the other side of the state, but I've been able to work locally here mostly.
Well, I want to thank you on the behalf of society and humanity for the work that you do and the work that people such as yourself do. And yeah, putting yourselves in the face of the danger and right at the crux of the problem and yeah, the horrific things. It's all really good to hear that there are people like you doing the work that you do. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and kind of talk about those things. I wish you the best going forward. Stay safe out there. And again, thank you for your time and all that you do. And hopefully, maybe down the line, we'll be able to speak again and you'll have some positive stories to take away from this whole pandemic situation.
Absolutely, Andrew. Thanks. And it really takes a team. I'm just one small part of it. It takes everybody, and it's nice to see various groups, volunteer groups, and businesses stepping forward to help out wherever they can. So, I'm part of it, but we're all part of it, just doing our part. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. Take care. All right.
All right, you too. Bye.
Here at River Ridge Hardware, we can match any color for you. So you need this color matched for your trim in your bathroom. Come to the color computer, stick it into the spectrometer, and allow the machine to do its thing, and it will match your trim exactly. So whether it was done by water damage or a young child, we can get you covered and get it matched. If you do need to have something so that it completely disappears, I can certainly help you with that one as well. Along with the spectrometer color matching capability that can match any competitor's paint color, we have a beautiful color palette that can help you start any new project. Give us a try.
After I got divorced, I had medical debt, credit card debt, and student loan debt. I was dealing with a lot of guilt. I found myself shopping to feel better. When my son was born, wanting to manage my finances was no longer a want, it was actually a need. STCU made that possible for me. I use the mobile app every single day. I'm able to color code all of my different savings accounts. And when you have nice things to look at, I think it brings you on a deeper level of motivation. I'm Kamika Love, the Budget Mom, and STCU is here for good.
This is Bloomsday in Spokane. We got about 40 firefighters and their friends and family handing out 40,000 cups of water as the day goes by.
It's a very good opportunity to see the public and support them and help them out and cheer them on during Bloomsday.
It's one of the best things about Spokane is that we have these major events and the whole community comes together not just to participate, but to volunteer and show that they really care about our city and making our city look great.
This type of an event really is emblematic of Spokane because so many people get involved. We have 50,000 people probably running this race. Always has been a very huge event.
Right now we're at the corner of Broadway and Nettleton. It's the last water station before the finish, so people are pretty much dehydrated by the time they get to us. They really need our water.
The water stations are a vital part, especially on warm days like today. It's real important that we have the volunteers to help with that. Without the volunteers, Bloomsday wouldn't exist.
All up and down the course, there are people that are involved in this celebration. It really is a celebration of what Spokane's all about.
Thanks for watching. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or check out any of our other programs on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Sponsored by Local 29 Firefighters Union, Well Dressed Walrus, and Homes for You.